Hello, and welcome to Educational Triage, where we discuss issues in alternative education. This is a discussion about teaching, by teachers, for teachers, and others who are interested in the alternative education world. We hope you find today's episode relevant, engaging, and useful. And if you do, please subscribe. I'm Tony Hunt, and I'm here to help guide you with the help of my friends Christy and Philip. And welcome back to Educational Triage. Today we have Christy back and we have Philip. Yay!
Aloha.
But Christy's not here yet. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing separate interviews with the two of them, because this is our end of the year review. And although we haven't done a full year of episodes yet, this is towards the end of the school year. And I just saw students walk across the stage for graduation. And I, along with many others, am plotting my exit, not only for the summer, but for good. Or is it? Time will tell. And
That's a
so,
common story. It's happening a lot.
It is a lot more. In order to celebrate our time together, we're going to be contemplating what we've learned this year and talk about summer plans, along with some topics we may pursue over the course of the hottish months. So let's get this sucker going. So, Philip.
Yes.
What are 3 lessons you learned this year, either through doing the podcast and your research or something you've discovered while working?
3. Oh my. That was assuming I was counting.
Start easily with just one. Just pick one.
Just one. I learned that the kids developed a new sense of shall we say interaction with computers and screens, or rather let's say a new
during this year.
They just it was really rapid, but in between the time they left and the time they came back, I saw it this year. They had a what I called the dual screen interchange.
Right.
They learned to
I remember we discussed this.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I think that's a thing. I don't know if it's passing. You got to give it a few years before if you see it a trend or but yeah, that's a thing.
What I discovered is that the kids will sit there and watch them talk on the computer programs, computer platforms for whatever course they're taking. Yeah. And then they will listen to their music. And it's like, what are you doing? Why are you on your phone? Oh, they're just talking. Well, don't you need to listen? Nah, I got this. I'm good. Yeah. 5 test tries later, do you think that maybe you shouldn't be listening to your music?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there was some things about that too. I was trying to gauge the effectiveness of it. I did catch a study group that was also playing Uno on their telephone, the same game. They were online and they were playing each other, playing Uno without the cards, and then at the same time comparing study questions. I was wondering how effective that might be. Fascinating.
Yeah, I think that they're more focused on their questions. I mean, on the Uno than they are on the questions.
It might be. It's really weird. Then there was the kid that sat back, and this is for sure true. And he went on a conservative chat line and started stirring up serious trouble. Started acting like a really, really inflammatory liberal. And then he'd sit back and watch how many people I think would get kicked off or something. They would do something like getting them booted, and then he'd count it. I'd say, it's just like shooting ducks in a barrel, isn't it, really? He goes, it is, isn't it? And I said, this is too
It doesn't
bad.
matter if it's conservative or liberal. It's so easy to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, he just picked the other. I mean, he could have done it the other way. It was so easy. I got the feeling that he was actually more conservative than liberal. He was just having a grand old time doing it to him. I thought, okay, get some work done. I appreciate your, I don't know. innovation,
That's
your
fascinating.
insight into the world. It's too easy. Now move on and get some work done. It was fun.
So, what was the best thing of the year for you?
Mm, that's a good question. You know, this is interesting. So I just recently moved to a small town, and my life's kind of been, I've been ragdolled, as the surfers say. When a big wave gets you and throws you around, there's not much you can do. So you just kind of get thrown around and you ride it out. And I was in this drive through, and this car was ahead of me. And I got there and I ordered a coffee, and I went to pay, and she goes, "Oh, no, it's been paid for." And I said, "Pardon me?" He goes, "So and so just paid for it. He said you're the best sub ever, and he wanted to tell you thank you." And here it was. I moved to this small town, and to kind of get that feeling, and I was kind of grooving on the fact that I was working in the local high school, and they considered me to be the cool sub. And I was also grooving on the fact that I was getting them to get some work done, which is sort of a point of pride of mine. But
That's
yeah, to have a
wonderful.
cup of coffee paid for. That's totally unrelated to education, or is it? Because we always talk about the relationships. And I
Right.
thought, oh
Right.
man, I was really having a bad day too, and I almost broke down in tears. It's like, oh, thank you, thank you.
It doesn't.
It, I
It
needed
doesn't
that.
seem to take much, and it doesn't
Yeah.
take much, really,
Uh-uh.
does it?
I didn't even know he was there. He saw me in his, as I remember, his big old mirror. I was probably sitting back there.
Hmm.
I don't think I was crying at the time, so no, I wasn't. No, I was probably staring off. Yeah, that was cool. That was a good time. I also learned that there is an excellent biomedical program up in Evergreen School District, Henrietta Lacks. Um,
Hmm.
that's a really cool program. It's like a magnet school, very
Is that the
theory
name of the
based.
school?
They're very, very serious. Those kids that go there about medicine. I subbed there a few times, and
Well, what a wonderful name for the school, too, right?
yeah, it was. Yeah, and I didn't realize this because I'm now just getting acclimated. I took a turn, I think today, yeah, and it's behind the big medical center, or the six-story medical center there. And I thought, oh, well, of course, but duh, I was came to it from the other way, and I never
Oh,
noticed that. So they just walk over there, which makes total sense. That's the kind
yeah,
of
it
school I would
does.
love to have. Hey, how about a rotation over there? Go see how they do stuff over in the emergency department if you can.
Oh, that's
Kids will
awesome.
love that.
That is awesome where kids get to explore and discover,
Yeah,
and they have a
really see
focus.
what it's really like instead of watch this film. Someday you may be able to do this.
Hmm.
They're so much more adept than that. That's just the
Hmm.
very tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
So, what are some issues that you would like to investigate more?
Hmm. There's some excuse me. There's some interesting things going on about the relationships between the students and the teachers, and I
What do you
can't.
mean?
I just can't nail it down. We've been talking about it this year, and
Hmm.
I like solutions. So maybe I'm wrestling a dragon that can't be wrestled, an indestructible animal. But this year especially, I think the teachers were really desperate to try to connect with the students, at least in some of the schools I worked at. And the students they weren't defiant, but they were trying to redefine themselves. And sometimes I saw the staff double down on that, like, no, you will not. We want it this way. But there was a lack of cooperation between the two. I don't think either one of them knew which direction to take it. Schools changed. The pandemic changed it.
Do you
And
think that,
go,
let me ask you this on that, because that's interesting, and here's what flashed.
yeah,
And that is when students become, well, when they become teenagers, they start struggling to be more independent.
yeah,
And they And the strife that they find is that struggle between parent and child, where the parent wants to keep that the kid as a child, and the kid is trying to
Yeah.
burst out of the cocoon or the chrysalis and wants to be able to emerge and be independent. Do you think that maybe they they weren't getting a lot of that maybe from their parents during the pandemic when they were at home, because their parents may or may not have been able to really pay attention to them because they were either working or who knows what. And now that they're in school, all of a sudden they have these rules again, and they say, wait a second, I was just out for over a year and I didn't have any rules, and look at me, I'm doing pretty well. So is that struggle for independence, and they want to be seen as being independent and have that recognized?
I don't know. It might be that, but I think it's more complex. I really think that the computers, Moore's law, that things change. They double. Computing power doubles every 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that things are going so quickly, that a pandemic used to be, to you and I, of course, 2 years or a year was like, oh, maybe. Now it's almost accelerated time, and it's almost like they're kind of growing up quicker in a way and adjusting quicker and trying to keep pace with it. And I think in a way, administrations were almost not seeing that and sort of pulling back the reins. But I think they were suffering through the same transition. Things had changed and they weren't aware of it or weren't acknowledging it. It was a good time to cooperate. It was a strange time. I don't know if it was within every school between the teachers and administration and the students to do that, but it was a good time to really redefine things, I think. I don't know if it was possible because of the size of buildings, but it,
Do you
yeah.
think they were successfully redefined, or
No, I don't.
anything was redefined?
Some places might have been. I can't be everywhere, and so I'm waiting for the dust to settle to hear reports. Um, and this podcast has gotten us to dig deeper, but I don't know yet.
I'm looking at that issue, and I'm seeing where the administration wanted to figure out which way the wind was blowing, and then all of a sudden they came down and they just slapped the kids with consequences and said, look, this is what you're going to do now. And the kids struggled and fought back, but they aren't very happy. And in the same course, the teachers felt the reverberations of those slapdowns, and it bounced back and hit every one of them. And so it seems as though the redefinition is not is the relationship maybe between the administration and the students, and maybe the administration and the teachers, because I know a lot of teachers who within the last week have told me that they are leaving. And if it means
Yeah,
that they
that's
leave teaching, they
extraordinary.
leave teaching. But they are leaving their building,
Yeah,
and
they're
they're leaving
leaving
their
districts
district.
and buildings, districts mostly,
Right.
because the district sort of says, no, we don't want you and you can't transfer. So, and then they'll say, we'll just say you quit, kind of thing. We'll let you quit.
Right.
Yeah,
But in February, there were 182, 185,000 teachers that left, that walked out,
wow.
which is extraordinary. And that's just one number. And it's one of the benchmark months because that's when the second semester starts.
Oh my goodness. Well, I know a
So, and
lot of
now we
people
have even
retired
more
early because
teachers.
they just, I know a lot of people were they retired mid career and shifted over.
Hmm.
And a lot of
Hmm.
people retired early, 5 years early for, you
Hmm.
know, um, I know a lot of people had a lot of passion for it and then no longer had it. I also know a lot of public teachers that used to defend public education and no longer do so.
Right. I think a lot of it was sucked out of them.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. I I don't.
Hmm.
I saw the same thing you did. I didn't want to say it too much, but I saw administrations just come down harder like, oh, do this anyway, or no, do this now. And the kids were sort of taken abruptly off guard. But they never did
Right.
control them, I noticed, which was interesting. It's just sort of,
No, because they handed that over to the teachers to take care of.
yeah, and
So
the
they could
kids
be,
still found ways to roam the halls,
oh, and to rip, I mean, they went with every TikTok challenge to rip off the soap dispensers, to do whatever
Yeah.
else that TikTok challenges were in the
There
school.
was a fire in one of the high schools I was. Actually, when we did the fire drill for the first time in my entire professional career, it was an actual fire. It wasn't
Really?
of danger to anybody. It was the fire department quickly put out. It was somebody was lighting the blobs of hand sanitizer coming out of the wall, and it crawled back up and lit the hand sanitizer dispenser. Dumbasses! And so it's like, come on, you guys.
Oh my
And I didn't
gosh.
hesitate to make a remark or aid about that, how that's pretty stupid to do. Yeah, it caused quite. Everyone's standing on the football field for like 2 hours, and everyone just went home. Day was over.
Oh wow.
At least it wasn't
Oh
windy and awful and
wow.
raining. But yeah, it made the local newspaper.
Did it really?
Oh yeah, I love living in the Shug. It was a scandal. And then the next day I was there when the principal came on and gave everyone the what for over the intercom before announcements. And I thought to myself, this is kind of like the good old days. This reminds me of, no more switchblades. Sorry. It did seem kind of old timey. Because I mean, aren't we really past lighting fires in the boys' room? I mean, come on.
Well, he used to be smoking in the boys' room, right?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, I still love to tell
Yeah.
kids about that one. Smoking, everybody smoked in teachers' lounges and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
I learned
What do you
that.
believe that people should know more about you? Something interesting, something not about work, but just something personal.
About me.
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Um, I can't. I can't. I can't give up a chance of just kind of running out into the woods, taking off. Um, I like to go on adventures, sort of
You're making
aimlessly.
me,
I will go on runs. I call them runs. I'll just go. I used to go a long, long way, like miles, like 20 miles on foot, but now it's a lot less. I'll do it in a car a lot longer. But yeah, I like to go on little adventures everywhere. I do it. I do it academically. I do it physically. I'm
do
kind
you
of a
do it for the
restless soul.
solitude? Do you do it for the solitude and so just for the quietness of the mind?
I think so. In the end, I think that's what it is. Yeah. I like to be with people though when I'm doing it. I don't mind. I don't run
Hmm.
away from people. I like people. I say hi to people when I'm, running on a trail or something. I just like to be
But you're
away.
not, but you're not having conversations with them. You're having conversations with yourself.
More or less just thinking. Yeah, and then I'll get to a fork in the trail and we usually take a right. I'll go left sometimes. And I've done that a lot. Yeah. I kind of live my
Hmm.
life that
So
way.
processing.
Yeah, I don't believe in, I kind of live in the moment. Maybe sometimes it's more difficult, but I live in the moment a lot, which is a lot of people try to do. I guess that's a gift. Sometimes it's like, whoa, what? I kind of forgot what happened back there. Or maybe I don't, I try to plan, but sometimes I let things, yeah, it's interesting. I've come to a
Mhm.
nice, happy place in my life where both feet are firmly planted in midair, and that's good. Like I said last podcast, no, it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable being uncomfortable if I have to be, and I like who I am, so it's fun. Yeah.
So, what do you wish that you had said in retrospect in one of the casts?
Oh, after the charter school thing, it's just so fresh. I still am so indecisive. I like the model. It would be something that I would like to do, but I also believe in do no harm, and it seems like it's sort of been used as a model to do harm, or it has a lot of potential if I was to take like 8 a.m. away from school districts. I'm a big believer in public
Mm-hmm.
schools. The problem is, I think public schools, I'll say this publicly now, I think they've let us down severely. I really do. I'm very disappointed, extremely disappointed, in fact, um, in many ways. And I'd like to restructure some things. And I think charter schools would be an excellent way to do it. But the way it's kind of set up, you kind of got to like hit the mainstream system a little bit more to get a good charter school going. And I hate hurting something that I value or I love, which is public education, for the sake of
Mm-hmm.
doing what I want to do. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like that's how we've operated so long. It just seems like that's just not going to work. It just doesn't seem to work. I mean, I know I want to, and it's the way to do it, but yeah.
But charter schools aren't working off of vouchers. There's still ADM for the public schools.
Yeah, there's some funding issues. Like in California, what it's doing is directly
It's
taking
the
away from
same.
like kids, and what it does is it takes off of it just drains. Public education should be doing something like that. Let's get it. I mean, I'm thinking there should be enough freedom in public education. Like I was blessed. I was just really blessed. I had no idea how lucky I was when I wandered into the office of my administrator, that my future administrator friend and mentor, and I was going for what I thought was a career education job, which was, by the way, your job. And I thought, okay, I'll teach career ed. I don't care. I just want my foot in the door. And they said, no, well, they hired somebody else, but would I take this evening school position? I said, you bet, I'll do it. I need a job, and I subbed, and I did this evening school position. I learned about alternative ed, and there's just
Mm-hmm.
no going back. I saw what it
Right.
did, and yeah, I'm a big believer. And then I've done the research over the years about learning and about how people interact in groups, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just convinced it's a smaller environment, and yeah, and also convinced that every time they build this mega high school, and we've got over 2,800 students, I'm going, oh no, that's not the way to go. That is the wrong direction, that sort of thing. It makes me go crazy,
Yeah.
but like the tragic event of school shootings, and they want to like monitor the doors. Have they ever been to a high school? How are you going to tell a 14-year-old girl who's upset about something, hey, keep that door closed? Quit letting your friends in the side door. I know you're upset, but I mean, I know that.
Well, they've actually become in the past week. They've become far more vigilant, and they've been going around checking everything
Yeah,
far more because, well, at least in our building and our district, there's only one point of entrance.
exactly. I've
So
I've been to high
unless you're
schools.
unless you're staff,
I've been to high
go
school
ahead.
that had different campus buildings, had 6 different buildings, and they had to build a fence. It was a nice one, but they had to fence in the
Hmm.
whole thing. It's like,
Oh,
wow,
they did that.
what are
They've
we
done that
doing?
with part of our building.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's not, you can't. It's a big building, and there's too many people, and like I said, it's a security system, and you get one 14-year-old girl that is the loose chain in your security, because it's a high school. It's a crazy place. Yeah,
right,
they're
it's not
kids.
just a teenage girl. It's any kid, really.
Yeah, it's a
You know.
teenage boy. It's a yeah, hey, watch me kick this door open. It's like they don't do rational things. It's funny to watch them. I look at these kids and go, wait, time out, stop. Between the thought and the action, you must have a hesitation. Let's talk about this.
But there isn't one because one is happening before the other one has even been completed.
I know. I try to install some sort of, you've
I
got to
think I'll
stop
kick
doing that.
boom.
Yeah, it's before the sentence is even finished, of course. Yeah, you got to kind
Definitely.
of catch it in their eyes before they go. Don't do it. Don't do it. Think, think, think.
Right. But but I think it's honing in on them now. It's what concerns me is with all these fences and all these points and everything like that. Are we
Yeah.
starting to imprison ourselves
Yes.
because of what's out there?
Yeah. We are. I mean, I'm not going to argue with somebody if they say, well, there's a security issue. Yep. Seems as if there is too, you know, I can agree
Hmm.
with that as well. But yeah, it's
Right.
imprisoning. Yeah. It's,
Hmm. I mean,
school should be welcoming community areas. They shouldn't be targets. So,
well,
wow.
yeah, and I don't understand why they choose school. Well, I understand why some students might choose schools because
Yeah.
they've been bullied and there have been other issues that go on. Um, I don't understand why some crazy maniac would choose a school or an ER for that matter.
Yeah.
It's
Because,
it the whole thing to me is somebody preying on the helpless
yeah,
and the innocent
I
in so
don't,
many ways.
I can't understand it at all. I wouldn't even pretend to do so. It's,
Right.
yeah, it's somewhere out there in the mind of not me. I can't, but
Hmm.
geez, man. Yeah. I
Yeah, our
think,
thoughts go out to those people
yeah.
and their families.
The, um, the kids today are there. I was listening to some conversations too, and there's mixtures of fact and fiction that bother me as far as connections go. Like I heard at the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, someone sort of glossing over the Russian position, saying, "You know, the Russians aren't that." Or no, what do you say? um, the Russians aren't that bad, or something. And I kind of went, "Oh, no, hold on there." I didn't argue. I kind of we talked about it. Something came up, and later I let it sort itself out through his friends. I didn't say anything, but I was kind of thinking,
Hmm.
where did he get that notion that they just weren't that bad? And it's like, well, you know, I mean, there's a war there. You kind of got to look at it as well, you know, that the what looks like the aggressors, they're not that bad, was sort of a rationality. And I'm thinking, he was sort of one of those kids that seemed like he'd know it too. He wasn't just blathering on. He was sort of, well, you know, this not the Russians really aren't that bad.
Hmm.
And I kind of went, where did that come from? You know, I can imagine, but I know kind of how it comes around, but
Well, I think
that's
it
certainly
comes
different from
from,
our era. But yeah,
yeah, no, I think a lot of that comes from a lot of the disinformation. And it
yeah,
also
yeah,
comes from,
yeah.
and it also comes from so much of what the media has pushed forth as being real. And then we find out that it was all propaganda and none of it
Hmm.
happened.
Yeah.
For example, the 13, was it 13 men on that island, and they said that the Russians said that they came in, and then they said that they shot them all or
Uh huh. Yeah.
something. But there were like 72 people actually on the island, and they were all taken aboard and sent to a prison camp.
Yeah.
And they were all checked out and everything, and they're all healthy. And then there was the ghost of, what was the name of that pilot? The
Kev.
Ghost.
Kev.
Yeah, the Ghost of
Yeah.
Kiev. And that
7.
had
Oh no.
nothing whatsoever to do with what
He
was
did it
going
in a
on.
P-51 Mustang. No, it was an unbelievable plane or something. I'm thinking, no way.
Yeah,
Here's some
there were
footage
just
of
there were just
something.
too many things that came from
Yeah,
so many other incidents. So
they were getting good.
we're we're no, we're not getting good. If we were
No,
getting good, then we wouldn't have to do this propaganda.
but I meant we're getting good at sort of seeing it. I mean, I've been watching it
Oh
too
yeah,
and sort of digging through
right.
it. There's this one. Yeah, I've been noticing there's a lot of pro-Ukrainian stuff. Not that that I'm not, you know, pro either one of them, or I'm not claiming neutrality either. But I'm saying that I'm getting a lot of pro-Ukrainian news, and and I'm kind of going, is it true?
Unfortunately, something happened, and I lost Philip here, and I wasn't able to get him back. So we'll just have to imagine what happened and how he answered the other questions. On the other hand, Christy was waiting in the wings, and so we're going to move forward with my interview with her. And here we go. And guess who I found lurking in the shadows? It's Christy Goodell. Hey,
That's me.
Christy.
Hello.
Welcome back. We've
Yeah,
missed you.
I know.
You've had quite a tornado of a life lately.
Oh my gosh, this time of year is always busy and it just seems to be compounded right now. So, yeah,
Well,
I'm
can't the
glad we were able to
nanny
make this.
Can't the nanny do the stuff with the kids?
With the imaginary one? The one that's
The
named me?
imaginary child or the imaginary nanny?
The imaginary nanny that's
Oh.
named Christy Goodell. Is that the one we're talking about? She did
Yeah,
it.
something like that. Something like that. Mhm. So we're looking back over the year, and what is okay? Let's just make it easier. What is one lesson you learned this year, either through doing the podcast or something that you discovered at work?
I think through the podcast is kind of the common theme that a lot of alt education teachers agree upon is that there needs to be more I'd almost say consistency. Like everyone seems to be kind of doing their own thing and everyone's just like, we're not really wild about this and we really would like it to be better. But because there's such wide variety, it's hard to get that kind of like cohesive movement to all go towards one goal, right? Because so many of the alt ed programs are so different in so many ways. And so I think one of the things I learned is it kind of validated mine or our opinion about the needs of alt ed and how it's viewed fairly consistency, not just here in like our area, but kind of across the country, right? That there's a lot of good work that's happening, but there's still a lot that needs to be done in order by like big picture. It needs to be supported systemically and funded, and we need better teachers and we need better and more cohesive training to prepare our teachers so that they can therefore prepare our students. We need to have, I feel like I'm kind of rambling. That's like 27 lessons in one.
So here's what I'm getting. And that is,
sure.
Because I was a little cut off. What you're saying is that it's consistent in that the needs remain the same, that we need to have good teachers and more of them. And we do have many, many, many good teachers. It's just that we don't have a ton of them. And there are some teachers out there, and I'm just gonna bite the bullet and say it, who are doing it for their own sake rather than doing it for they're not doing it for the right reasons.
Okay, right.
And we need to figure out how do you say that, how to get the chaff out, and they would be the chaff off of the wheat.
You just said it, right?
Right, but I can't remember what the word is. I know it's not wean. So
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So anyway,
I think my brain has stopped working.
And we just need to be more consistent, and we need to come together, I think, a lot more. I think there needs to be more community building, maybe with alternative ed. And so more like people coming, and
it just seems like so many
talk.
Yeah, everyone just seems there's so many good teachers that are in this area, but it seems so, compartmentalized, or they're just kind of in their own little silo. And, everyone should not be working this hard individually or in their little pods, right? There needs to be a way to make, like you said, community building, but but I get the challenge because there's just such a wide variety in the world of alt ed still. And so that is one of the lessons, I think, one of the takeaways is that while there have been really good gains and there's getting more positive recognition of alt ed not being like the dumping ground or the behavior program or the prison pipeline, but they're seeing it as on par with gen ed. I think that is getting better. But there are still a lot of programs that are still needing more. Like all the statistics that we have been sharing, a lot of it has been pretty eye-opening. And so I think there's just still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's true. So I was telling Philip, we have a lot of teachers that are leaving right now And February had over 180,000 this year, which is up from last year, and even more this year, even more towards the end of this year. So, and actually leaving their buildings more than they are leaving teaching, but I think a lot of them are leaving teaching. So the vast majority, because they're done. They've had it. So, okay.
Yeah.
What was the best? Oh, sorry.
Oh, there goes the car. Sorry. Car drive by.
What was the best thing about this year?
As it in general, or as it relates to the podcast, or
you choose. You choose.
Man, that is a big, broad question, right? And I was thinking about this earlier, and I'm always impressed with how much it's kind of a double-edged sword. I am always amazed at how hard teachers work all the time for their students. I'm always impressed by that year after year after year. And you're right. This year has been ridiculously hard, and even more so with what kind of seems like a new culture shift of the public's not like behind and supporting the teachers like they used to. So I think the best thing is that even when it's been either in our building or in our state, the teachers are still in it, and they're really working to help support the students have really struggled, right? There's a lot of gaps that we are still discovering from distance learning and online learning from COVID. So I think one of the nice things about this year was the fact that there were times that we could get together and just kind of talk through the podcast. That has been very nice, because you and I are very similar in that it's always like, hey, I have 27 things to do. And then that's on top of the other huge to-do list. And so we don't have time in our school day to just sit and at least I don't. There may be other teachers, but it's not me. There's always like burning through the day, right? So that has been very nice this year, to be able to just kind of stop and talk about one topic. And even though there was an agenda, it wasn't like our other meetings we have in the building where like we have to get through this and we've got to cover this and create an action plan, and then we're going to set up the follow-up for the next week, and there's always like stuff to do. So it's been kind of nice with this podcast to just have the topic just be that day, and then when you're done, and then we can move on to the next week. That has been nice. That's been a good thing.
Oh, cool. Yay. So, what are 3 issues you want to investigate more?
I really would love to look at more specific programs that selfishly that are nearby us, right? What are some programs, especially like post-secondary, outside of high school, like that we can really shine light on to our current students? I don't feel that I know in depth enough about what is out there. I kind of know just like a little toe in the water. But I would really love to know and talk about specific programs or schools, or, I think that would be something I'd love to kind of talk about more and share, because I don't think a lot of people know all the different opportunities there are for students after they graduate high school. That's not A, college, or B, a job, right? So I'd love to do that. I think the whole issue of and that's such a big one, but like you said, the teacher retention, more and more students or families are not happy with how or what they perceived general education to be, and they're looking for alternatives. And so I think, how can we support that within at least at our high school level? And I kind of think, what can it start? How can we incorporate it at middle school, so it's not just this 4-year blip? right? How can we maybe kind of explore the intro? Is that a possibility? And what it looks like after high school as well.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think that middle school has a culture, and I think that the culture is maintained by the elementary school, where middle school you're just in a revolving door, and so as soon as you put in your 10 months, then you move on to the next 10 months, and then you move on to the next 10 months,
Right.
and then you're in high school, and then you don't move on to the next 10 months until you've finished what you need to do. And that is a culture shock. And there's something about it, and it's about accountability. And I remember that back in the early 90s, not early 90s, but the late 90s, early aughties, we talked about more accountability. Accountability was one of the key buzzwords. And I sat back one day and I looked at my administrator and I said, this feels like we're being gaslit so badly. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, we talk about accountability, and when we hold the kids accountable, they get away with murder. There's no accountability. And so somebody else said, no, it's us that need to be accountable. And I said, it works both ways. It's a two-way street. Everybody needs to be accountable. So I know that this year, somebody said, we talked about grade inflation, and we talked about standardized test scores. And it's sort of like parents want the best for their kids, but they don't want to do the work. The kids don't want to do the work. I had a student who wrote a paper, and she gave it to me, and it was a rough draft, and I gave her a B. I said, this is a good rough draft, but it's a B, and it's a low B. You have these things to work on.
Right.
And the student went crazy. And the mother sent me a very terse email. And we had a pretty good relationship, the mother and I. And the student and I had a really good relationship. And the mother said, what is wrong with her paper? I read it, and it is good. And I said, yeah, it's good, but it doesn't shine. It doesn't shine. And I said, did she tell you what my comments were? And she said, oh, you gave her comments? And I said, well, yeah.
Yes.
She said, like what? And I said, here, I will share her document with you. And I did. And she said, well, what does all this mean? I said, in order for it to be an A paper, it needs to shine. It needs to sparkle. It needs to move the earth, because that means that it is an awesome paper. It can't just be, yeah, that's good. Fine. That's not awesome. That's, okay.
Right.
C is meh. It's fine. B is, it's interesting. A is, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is incredible.
Top
and I said, and she shouldn't be able to just whip one out off the top of her head without doing some work. She's going to go to college. And next year, when she's in college, they're going to hit her hard. And she needs to learn that she needs to rewrite these things. And the mother said, but I think, and I said, I don't care what you think.
The parent.
I said, if you can help her get there, that will be teaching her far more than she's willing to listen to from me. And so the mother called me and she said, okay, we worked on this for almost 2 days. What do you think? And I read it and I sent it back and I said, okay, here are the 2 things I need. The mother said, oh my gosh, you are never ending. But she got it done.
Yeah. And that's you got to put the work in.
Well, yeah. So, anyway, yeah, but that's the accountability piece. And parents don't really want to do that because they want their little flower, male or female or whatever, to be the shiniest, most sweet smelling little flower that's out there. And how dare we say that one of their petals is getting a little tainted,
I do agree that it does seem that the work ethic has shifted in our students, or the expectation of how much work to put in. And I think I don't think it's solely I don't believe it's solely because of COVID.
No.
But COVID definitely did not help. But I mean, like that's what we had to do, right? People were getting sick, and so you couldn't, we did education did what the best that they could at the time that was changing nonstop, right?
Right. With all the messages we were being
Right, and we're going to do
tasked with
this, and
handling.
then we're just going to be virtual, and then we're going to do virtual this way, and then we have to change it, and then it
Right.
was just so hard, just seems like a million years ago. But and I don't know if it's necessarily an issue, but I guess maybe it's like one of the topics is, and we talked about near the beginning about what kind of skills are needed. I think it was one of the first episodes, right? What are the
What qualities? The qualities of a good alternative ed program or a
right.
teacher?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it was something like that. Because I remember we talked about like 21st century skills and
Right.
Yeah. But I think one of the things we need to talk about is kind of like how do we know the skills that they need. How can we do a better job of teaching them and encouraging them? I feel that there's a lot to be desired when everyone is trying to do all these other things and prepare them for testing and for, we're just working. It's kind of like the discussions we've been having in our building about like the grading for equity. Are we just grading them for clicking off boxes and I'm just going to get these 15 assignments done, but I really haven't learned anything. All I've learned is just to basically cross off a to-do list? Or are we really focusing on, hey, we need to work about like time management and what does that look like? And, and that brings in some of those discussions about like late work, right? And that's a really hard one for a lot of students and teachers to wrap their heads around, so that's.
Yeah, because the brain isn't fully developed at their age.
Right.
And so, I mean, read The Primal Teen, and that gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on in their brain.
It's super hard because we're expecting, in middle school, they're just, like you said, we're just kind of still going through our rotation of classes. And then all of a sudden, freshman year, we're like, we're going to start planning your future. And you have 4 years to figure it all out. And we're going to fill your schedule with classes that are meaningful to you that you want. And it's filled with CTE. And you're going to take all this core. And then you will learn in 4 short years. And a lot of them are like, what? Like, we're asking so much of them so quickly to figure things out. And if you don't figure it out fast enough, you get kind of stuck and then it becomes overwhelming.
And then you feel as though you're stuck in a void and that you're not good for anything because everybody else seems to know what they want to do and you don't.
Right.
And a lot of the kids are crossing their fingers when they say what they think that they're going to go into.
And they don't know and that's the other thing too, is that they don't know the requirements of the profession. I really love, I'm trying to think of some of my students who are like, of course, aside from like, I'm going to be a gamer, like, no, because everybody loves video games. So we're all going to be gamers and make,
or an influencer.
Right. Like, yeah, no, that's not happening. But you can work on digital arts, on how to program or how to design.
Yeah, definitely.
That kind of stuff. But yeah, not too many people make it really successfully by just playing their Xbox and Call of Duty. That's just not really sustainable. Let's figure out a plan B. Anyway, so I think there is a big issue of like, hey, once you kind of figure out the quote, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I know I want to be a teacher. I want to be a
policeman.
A policeman. I know I want to be a veterinarian because I love animals.
Jumper.
I know I want to be, I know my oldest is kind of a really good, I know I want to do business. That's what I want to do. I want to run my own company. I want to be, so I'm going to do business. And then when you start breaking down like, hey, in order to do that, you need a crap ton of math, and it's a lot. It's very complex. And if you're kind of over here going, God, I really don't like math, but we kind of, you know, like we got to figure this out. Or I had some students who really love the hands-on part of science. So they want to be in the medical field. They want to be a nurse, which is great. But then I'm like, we got to break down, like, what are the skills that you need to be a nurse, right? It's not just like playing in your science class. Like, there's a lot to it, and the requirements and the time frame. And I think a lot of them kind of don't realize until they're like junior, even senior year, we're like, oh, I don't like taking all of these heavy classes. I just like the hands-on part of the science, but I don't like all like the huge vocabulary you have to, and the medical terminology, right? And they don't realize that component of it, or the hours that you're doing 12-hour shifts and you are standing the whole time, and oh, I don't like needles. Yikes, that's not this is not the job for you.
Well, that and seamstress are probably out of order then.
Right. And so I feel that is an issue that education is still greatly lacking, that we do really well about broad terms for career planning, but we aren't doing a good enough job with the specifics. I think alt ed is actually doing a better job, because you can get into those alt ed programs that are very career specific, and then they can get in those nitty gritty. But I think that's an issue that's kind of across the board, that
but they still have, but we still run into problems with students who have to do career investigations, and they're like, well, I don't know what I want to be. Well, what are some of the things that are suggested for you?
Yeah.
And they say, well, just look at some that are interesting.
Right.
And one of my kids had absolutely no direction this year. And I think I brought this up one week, and all of a sudden we were talking, and he got really interested in the engineering concepts of watching the cliffs erode and the houses going over while we were down at the beach, and just the engineering aspect. And I was really excited. I thought, okay, cool. This kid is thinking maybe about engineering or some kind of, construction, and using those skills. This is really cool, because I saw the light bulb go off.
Yeah.
And we got back, and then he looked at me the next day. We were in school, and he said, Mr. Tony, I think I know what I want to be. And I said, what's that? And he said, a plumber.
Oh.
I said, a plumber? And he said, yeah. He said, I cannot believe how much money they're making. And when you told me how much that plumber was charging you to put in a valve, because I called a plumbing company that used to be really easy to get in touch with. They would come out, and they were the lowest bid, and they did a fantastic job, and they were wonderful. So I called them because they could come out in a week. And the guy I wanted, he would have charged me about $1,400 for about an hour and a half job. And so I thought, well, these guys, they got to be cheaper than that. And I said, well, how much is this going to be? And they said, well, you'll find out when he gets there. And I'm thinking, okay, this sounds like a setup. So the guy calls me when I'm down on the beach, and I'm talking to this kid. And the guy says, yeah, it's going to be $2,329. I said, excuse me? He said, $2,329. Do you want me to do it or not? And I'm thinking, okay, if I called this other guy, it's going to be another month. I got to have this bathroom done.
Right.
And so I said, okay, I'm biting the bullet. I'm not happy, but go ahead and put it in. And the kid looked at me and said, you have that kind of money? And I said, unfortunately, I kind of do right now, but not anymore. So that's what's guided him. But I've been telling the kids, if you get your hands dirty, you can make good money. It'll take you a little bit of time, but you'll be making big money faster than the people who go to college, and you won't have to pay back student loans.
Yep. This is true.
And so he's looking into that, because he thinks, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, though they can't hire enough people for, a lot of the trade programs. Like we've talked about that too,
Right.
Like an electrician, in construction, they cannot get people trained and out there fast enough. But I think I learned that too in my externship last year when I think people think like, hey, you just are, in construction, I'm just hammering nails, or they see the construction guy, they call him a rod man, right? And they just are standing out there with the rod. And they're like, oh, I can do that. I'm like, well, there's more to it than that for a lot of them, right? You still need to have a pretty significant handle on math. You need to have really good, there's a lot of skills you need. It's not, and so we still have to kind of wrap some of our students' perceptions of what these careers entail. And I think, right, they just think, I'm going to do blank because I can see people when they're at the top of their field in that area. And that's the one for me. I mean, I'm still like a perfect example where I knew I wanted to be a vet for so long, a veterinarian, so long. And it wasn't until I got into college where I'm like, holy moly, this is a lot of math and a lot of science, years and years and years of it. And, I didn't know all the steps it would take to get to the job I wanted. And I'm good in science and math, but I was just like, this is a lot, and I think that's, in alt ed, a lot of people, I'm going to be a chef. Well, you don't just like bake cookies and now you're going to be running your own bakery shop, right? Like there's a lot that you have to do in order to get to these service jobs. And so I think that's kind of an issue I wish that we could maybe down the road talk more about in some capacity.
I like that idea. I like that idea about the reality versus the Disney version.
Right. The end job versus what does it take to get to.
Yeah. Instead of coming out and saying, look at all my lovely cookies at 3:30 in the morning, I got to get these into the oven. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then you're still working at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And you're closing up shop so you can go home and catch a few winks of sleep. And then you have angry people on Sunday morning because you're closed.
Right. Yeah.
Because you have to sleep sometime.
There's a lot of, cosmetology. I have a lot of students who express interest in that because they're very interested in beauty and makeup and hair and nails, which is great. But, to color hair, you have to know there's some chemistry behind that and some
big
math.
Time.
Yeah,
it's
definitely very significant. And, there's a lot of skill. And then you also have to do the, all the realization of, are you going to work freelance? How much, if you're going to work in a studio or a salon, and then how much training is there? I think a lot of times, so I think that's one of the issues that I feel that we need to keep coming back to.
Definitely. Just so that you know, and for anybody else who's interested, next year, we are having a beauty school come in, and I believe it's right after school. And they will be teaching a course for students that are interested.
Oh, that's neat.
It's kind of like beginning stuff because they feel that they need more people in the industry. So if they can get them further along and get them some of the certifications, that will help propel more of them. So, and so that's one thing that's going to be happening. My successor is taking that on.
That's cool.
And so we had a meeting with them because I had talked to them and the district about setting something up. And then the district said, we'll get back to it later. And they never picked it up. And so the beauty school was getting frustrated. And my successor said, hey, I'm kind of interested in doing this. Are you interested in doing this? And they said, hot diggity dog. Yes, we are. So, and they're
great.
they're doing it at cost. No cost to the district.
That's cool. Because they know then they're going to get, more people enrolled in their program. That's just smart.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that we need in as much. Yeah. That's wonderful. I wish
Most
we could.
deaf.
Yep.
So, okay. So
how are we on time?
We're fine.
Okay.
What do you wish you said in retrospect in one of the podcasts?
I know that one I struggled to think because, I'm always amazing with my words. No. That was a hard one for me to try and think about because we've done a whole bunch of them. I don't know. I almost feel like I need to come back to that one.
Okay. So what's one personal thing about you that you would like the audience to know?
That's not work related?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like all the fun stuff, right?
Like, where have you been?
Like travel. Well,
she's been disappeared, hasn't she, people?
So, I have 2 kids, one in college and one in high school, and they are both very active, and we're an involved family, and so that takes a lot. We also have we used to have just 2 dogs, and now we have 3. So, I love cats, but we definitely are a family of dogs. And so that's a little something about me. I don't know what other what did you share? What did you say?
Oh, nobody asked me.
What's something that people should know about you?
Oh, God.
See?
Something people should know about me is that...
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, boy.
I know. It's surprisingly a challenging question.
I'm always coming up with ideas, and I'm always trying to figure things out. I like to stay busy.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Same.
when I'm tired, I can become a lump. I was talking over some ideas that I had today with people, and getting their little gears going on some other topics. I have something about me. Oh, I turned on Televistazo, which is the Ecuadorian news channel.
Oh, okay.
Today.
What?
Well, I used to live in Ecuador.
See, there's something.
Yep. And I taught down there, and I just watched their news today, and they're having... the people in the banana industry are not happy, especially with the United States. And, just watching it, and it was so weird because all of a sudden I felt my brain changing, not only to understand their form of Spanish, which is what I was so used to listening to, but also there's something cultural, and I started getting the smells back and everything else.
Oh.
That was... I tend to be experiential. So, yeah. And one other thing is that I am retiring, and I am moving east, and I am moving to a small town where I can still work on the podcast in my retirement.
Yeah.
And do all kinds of wonderful things with my dogs, and go hiking, go fishing, go swimming, all kinds of stuff, because I'm near a river. And yeah, there we go.
I know, that's exciting.
It is. Okay, so now, what was the question? What's something in retrospect you wish you had said in a podcast you've had more than ample time to think?
I know. And I was so intrigued by your Ecuador story. Dead air. I don't...
It's okay. I can always splice it together.
I know.
In fact, I can have you going, I don't know.
I know.
Rapid succession.
Yeah, just say it over and over and over again. I guess I wish, in retrospect, I wish I was able to participate and learn more about the charter school podcast. So I guess that would be my, what's
But-
one thing I would like to wish I'd said. I wish I would have been able to participate in that discussion.
Yeah, but that was sort of a tornado day for you.
Yes. Oh, Lordy. Yeah. So I wasn't able to.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I wasn't sure what was happening, and then you seemed out of it.
It was a rough, yeah.
It was a rough one.
That happens. That's,
Yeah.
I'm not always the positive, cheery, sparkly person 24/7. There you go. That's something surprising people don't know. I'm not a robot. Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. So what are you doing this summer?
So we're
aside from the podcast,
right. We are staying here last year was a double whammy of making up for trips that were canceled because of COVID. And then also because my son was leaving to go to college. So it was kind of like, this is the last family vacation. Like he was moving to Mars or something.
And you did your externship.
I did my externship and we did 2 very large vacations. So it was a lot, not for me. I loved it, but for my family, especially my husband. So this summer we are just kind of staying here. I think that's going to make my husband much happier. Plus with the puppy, you got to stay.
Yeah.
Do some training with her. I'm getting back into running because the weather here has been awful. And I have now become a more fair weather runner. And so I run Hood to Coast, which is a big, huge relay out here in the Pacific Northwest where you run on a big relay team. And it's really fun. But as one gets older, it's a little harder to, bounce back from those kind of massive races. And so that's another thing now that the weather hopefully is finally getting a little better, I can get outside and do some running. But we're just going to kind of hang here more. We have one trip where we're going to Coeur d'Alene. I've never been there in Idaho.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah. So we're going to do a family, like a car trip,
It's a growing space. There's a lot of people from California moving there.
To Idaho?
To
Coeur d'Alene?
To the Coeur d'Alene area, yeah. Well, yeah, they're moving to Idaho.
I'm very excited to see. I went to Boise when we were kind of doing the college searches, so that's the only place I've been. So I'm very excited to kind of just go.
It's beautiful up there.
Yeah. Yes, very nice. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna do that.
Cool. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I almost said I'm going to turn you off now.
Essentially, yes.
I'm basically going to say thank you very much. And I look forward to our next podcast. And to everyone out there, thank you for joining us. I hope you are having wonderful final days. If these are your final days of school before the summer hits, and you can interpret that final as how you wish. And so until next week, we will say ciao. Bye-bye.